Show business, baby. Whoa! Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mike Yanek Show, episode 48. Oh my god, Mike, we're almost at episode 50. Yes, time flies so fast, unfortunately. Okay, I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you're having a great week. I hope that you're smashing it and you're having great success and much wealth and happiness in your life. Okay? Listen, mate, in today's episode, I am going to tell you how I, Mr. Mike Mayhem Yanek, comedy superstar in the UK, write stand-up comedy, okay? But before I do that, it's just like a little catch-up and a little, summary, and we're just gonna have a few minutes. Listen, if you watched the previous episode, because I promised I'm going to tell you how my father reacted to the, to the gift that I sent him. Hold on, I need to put these things on because they're making too much noise when I put my hands. Listen, most people usually delete stuff like that from their podcast, but not me, baby. I don't give a fuck. Hold on. Oh, shit. Anyway, so this one's staying open. I cannot fix it. The thing is, this jacket makes too much noise, and I'm not sure if the microphone is picking it up. It doesn't matter. Listen, so in the previous episode, I told you that I sent like a little parcel of CDs and like little treats and bits and bobs and surprises for my father. I told you the full story from day one. Everything's very interesting. Go and watch it, right? And I said that because when I recorded the podcast, I couldn't speak to him, on Skype and that type of stuff because he was busy. One day he was changing his tires on the car. The other day he was cooking mushroom soup. I'm not joking. So he couldn't speak to me. Anyway, I spoke to him a few days ago and he loved it. He was very, he loved the surprise and everything went great. Yes. And he's very, very happy and probably rocking out, listening to his CDs. Okay, that is the little update that I promised you. Everything went great. I was quite nervous though, to be honest with you. Now, I have a few very special occasions coming with this podcast because on the 25th of September, September. Why do I always mix September and December? I mean, September is my birthday month, but I don't know. Anyway, on the 25th of December, 2020, oh my God, this year just got a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? It used to be so bad. 2020 used to be horrendous, and now I got there's a little sparkle. There's a little sunshine, a little bit there. Why? Because there is going to be the Mike Yanek Show Christmas special, baby. Whoa! Yes, this is going to be a holiday bonanza, extravaganza to remember. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be, yes, this is not a joke, on the 25th of September at 10 o'clock in the morning premieres. I want you to be up in your Christmas PJs watching the episode. It's going to be great. We're going to have, I'm going to tell you some stories from Christmas, from back in the day in Bulgaria. It was crazy. I will show you the presents that I bought for my girlfriend. I will have a few other bits and pieces, surprises, and I'll recommend some movies and stuff like that. It's going to be great. And I'm going to be filming it in a few weeks. And I'm just preparing all the stuff now, but make sure you tune in, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, so make sure you don't miss anything. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be great. It's going to be so much awesome. Now, listen. Also, on the second week of January, I have the 1 year anniversary show of the Mike Yanek Show. Yes, 1 year. Oh my God, I cannot believe it. So I'll try to do something special. Also, in January, after that show, I will tell you the story that everybody is waiting for. Because when I first came to the UK, and also in 2021, on the 21st of May, officially, Mikey Boy has been in the UK for 10 years. Woo! So I'm going to do like a little recap or whatever, around that month, and I'll tell you a lot of stories. But when I first arrived to the UK, I used to work on a strawberry and a lettuce farm for 4 months. That is a true story, and I have so many bizarre interactions and stories and characters, and it was crazy, wild, and it was the first time I left Bulgaria. And I will go into full details with all the stories, and there's going to be 3 or 4 episode, podcast. There's no way I can put everything into one. So, and in the meantime, I was thinking like what to talk about, because I literally have how many, like 3 or 4 episodes to go before the Christmas special and then the 1 year anniversary, and then I know what to do. I have this show on YouTube, which is every Sunday from 12 a.m. called The Life of a Stand-Up Comedian. If you haven't checked it out, go and check it out. There's 7 episodes available. And I was thinking, because, it's mostly me vlogging and traveling across the UK and, talking with comedians and, making jokes and gigging in front of 12 drunk people in a pub and talking with them after that and all that type of stuff. And I was thinking, like, because there's no gigs now, you know what I mean? Because there is a certain type of situation in the UK, you know what I'm saying, that is going to be lifted very soon, hopefully, okay? And I was thinking, like, maybe I can record an episode where I just talk about how I write stand-up comedy. You know what I'm saying? Because, what's my creative process and all that stuff. It even sounds silly when I say it. But I was thinking, like, because the videos are about 5 or 6 minutes, and I was like, there's no way I can put all that stuff in 5 or 6 minutes because I talk a lot and you know what I mean? I will edit it down, but there's no way you can get the gist of it. So I was thinking, like, you know what? I'm going to do maybe like an episode or 2 of the podcast. I have 3-4 episodes before the big events where I don't really, I have some stuff to talk about, but I was like, okay, let's just do that instead, all right? And I think you really enjoy it because in this episode I will tell you, I'll give you all the details. I will spill all the beans. You'll get all the insights behind the curtain, in front of the curtain, below the curtain, everything. How it works, okay? I'll tell you my process of creating, the greatest the greatest bits ever, okay? If you ever seen me gig, where else you gonna go and you're gonna see a weird-looking Eastern European guy with a sweater, okay, that was on sale, 12 quid, okay? 12 quid from River Island. And he's going to shake his pelvis, shake his pelvis, shake his pelvis in front of right in front of a bunch of drunk middle-aged British women in a pub, okay? And they love it, by the way. They scream, they howl. It's like the Magic Mike show. You know what I'm saying? There's no messing about. Magic Mike is here. Okay, so if you wanna know how I come with these great ideas, revolutionary jokes, watch this episode. Okay, listen. Oh my God, I'm talking so much shit today. Getting hot now. Okay, I have a new light. I have some new lights in here, so that's why it's getting very hot, very warm. Okay, listen, so let's, enough joking, Mike. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of this episode, you know what I'm saying? So listen, mate, okay. So, this is my process, okay? If you don't know me, if this is the first time you're ever watching the show, I've been doing comedy for about 9 months now, excluding, the whole situation. We had some lockdowns in here over the last year or whatever. I'm not excluding 9 months in total, okay? About 9 months. I've done 80 gigs, okay? And I've done some comedy clubs now, and I've done, I haven't won any competition or anything. They usually don't want me in competition, honestly, like, because I think they have too many people, and I'm always late to apply, but I've applied for a few. They didn't want me. I even applied for, there was like this show, which was about something to do with immigrants and refugees, so meaning all the money and everything goes to, some sort of charities. And they said, we're looking for comedians with immigrant or refugee background. And I applied, and I was like, bro, I am what you're looking for. You know what I'm saying? I'm funny, I have experience, and I'm immigrant, like immigrant background. And they said, no, you're not good enough for us. Honestly, like, even they didn't want me. You know what I mean? So I haven't won any competitions, but I do comedy clubs now, here and there. Mostly in Liverpool. Yeah, baby. Anyway, hold on. So, this is my creative process, okay? Now, I think this episode will be very interesting if you're a comedian, or if you want to be a comedian, or if you're just a casual fan, or if you're any other type of person on the planet, okay? That means everybody should watch because it should be great. Now, and I'm starting to realize that actually my creative process is not as entertaining as I thought it would be in my head, because the more I'm speaking, the more I realize that this episode is going to be a complete train wreck. Okay, now, my creative process is very simple. So on my phone, I never use pen and paper, okay? Because I think that even though it looks more sexy, it definitely looks, like I've seen comedians when they pull out their notepads and they have the leather covering, and they have the little strap on it, and you can, when they write stuff down, like, oh, I'm thinking about jokes right about now, and they're writing stuff, it looks very sexy, you know what I mean? But the problem is, because I constantly change stuff and I constantly come with new ideas and rearrange, little sentences or little bits inside the big bit, I need to constantly, just scratch things off or remove, and it's a complete mess. You know what I mean? I've tried it, but it takes such a long time. Like, when was the last time you sit down to write for like half an hour straight? My hand hurt, you know what I mean? And I think we're kind of not used to actually writing anymore, and my writing is so ugly, bro. Oh my god, I cannot read anything. You know what I mean? I look like a drunk dentist, or no, a drunk doctor who's writing. When they write the prescription, it's just like these little scribbles. So yeah, just imagine drunk doctor writing a book or something, and it's so bad. So for me, always I have like this notepad or whatever on my notepad on my phone. So what I do is I constantly talk to myself, and yeah, I mean, come on, there's nobody here. And I constantly talk to myself, and I always think about stuff like all the time. You know what I mean? Not only jokes, but when I go to the bus and I'm like in my head, I always look at people. I love looking at people. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, look at this motherfucker. Look at those ugly shoes, bro. What the hell? You know what I mean? I just roast people in my mind, obviously, because if I do it out loud, people will beat the hell out of me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not even that strong, even though I look very muscular. You know what I mean, on this video, but I'm not that strong. So I don't know how to fight, unfortunately. And I'm not as fast as I used to be. So I don't have much of a chance. Comedy is the only thing I got, is the only weapon I got is jokes. And so I constantly think about stuff. And sometimes, when you're talking and when I'm walking to the store or whatever, or you hear something or you see somebody do something, there's like a line. It just pops in, like the punchline, like, ba 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 ba. And I'm like, oh, damn. And I pull out my phone and I just write it down, in all the different files or whatever. Sometimes I just see something. You know what I mean? One time, oh, hold on, my back's hurting. One time I was in the comic book store before, they closed us and all that stuff in Liverpool. And you walked in and you kind of know what type of people are usually in the comic book store. And I saw these three. They look a bit, I wouldn't say gangster, but just like, I don't know, chavs. Is that the right word? I mean, we have this slang word in the UK, chavs, meaning like hoodlums, you know what I mean? Like youngsters up to no good, with the hoodies. And they didn't look like people who will be in a comic book store. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be judgmental, but they didn't look like it, you know what I mean? They're just three scouts, Liverpool guys, maybe teenagers or whatever. They walked in, like, you know what I mean? That's how they talk. And I stopped my music and they were literally a bit behind me. So I'm just walking and I'm just looking at figurines or whatever. So they were literally walking and they were talking to each other about, like, I don't want to ruin the joke because it's part of my bit that I'm writing now. But they were talking some very crazy stuff that usually you wouldn't hear people talk in a comic book store, especially fans. And they were so funny. And I was just giggling and I'm just listening to them. And I literally, as I was walking, I pulled out my phone and I started writing word for word what they were saying. Okay, I cannot tell you the complete story because, it's a bit, so I don't want to give out my material. But when I finished, and I was like, bro, that is so funny. And then I told it to some people and they really laughed. And I was like, okay, so then I write that stuff down. You know what I mean? So that's the best thing about being a comedian. Like, your job is to just experience and observe life and report on it. You know what I mean? Like, I have a whole bit about people arguing in a bus, and it's one of my favorite bits, and it's all based on a true story. Obviously, my comedies, I add very surreal elements to it, but everything is based on a true story. And it was just one day, I was just sitting there and a couple was arguing like crazy in the bus, and I just stopped my phone and I started listening. And I was literally writing. And I have another story that I haven't done ever on stage. This is when I first started writing comedy. There was like this couple that I think the girl was cheating on him, but she was very like, oh yeah, I cheat because I can do whatever I want. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? I'm gonna cheat on you and there's nothing that you can do about it. That type of psycho. And I was literally, I'm here, they're on the other side over there, literally nearby me. And I just, again, just stopped my music and I started writing down. And I have 3 pages of that. So that is the best thing about being a comedian. Another time I saw like, because I travel with the bus. And if you want to get crazy stories, travel with bus. You know what I mean? Because I don't know why, because bus people are crazy. they, they sometimes, I mean, obviously I don't want to, I am a bus person as well, by the way, so I don't want this to come off as a classist. I'm not like a guy with a Lamborghini and be like, oh, these poor bastards in the bus. No, I'm one of them, you know what I mean? But they're crazy, they're loud. Sometimes some people are drunk, other people fight on the bus. Those couples who don't know boundaries when they are in public, meaning that if they're going to argue, they just argue like they argue in the living room inside of a full bus with people and just having meltdowns. Like, I've seen stuff on buses that you'll be like, is that a movie? Am I watching a TV show? Like, what the hell is happening, bro? It's insane. And that is the best part about being a comedian, You just look at stuff and you report them, okay? So I just write down stuff. I have this huge file. Usually I don't separate the files. Everything is in one, and it's just like different sentences and different punchlines, right? So, and after I accumulate stuff, I sit down on my computer and I have, you can even see them. I mean, obviously it's too far away, you won't be able to read them, but they're in the corner. I have three files here in the corner. They're called, okay, so they're called, so you have 3 files. First one is called new material, brackets, work in progress, okay? The second one is called next in line material. This is just how I call it. And the third one is called comedy repertoire. Yes, I am that pretentious. You know what I'm saying? Comedy repertoire. So on the first one, which is the new material work in process, this is like the draft. This is just like the bucket that catches all the vomit when everybody's super drunk at a party, and that moment hits where you're just going to, you know what I mean? There's like this huge bucket, it just catches everything. So this is the file where I just, everything that is on the phone, I literally copy and pasted it there. Just bleh, non-edited, spelling mistakes, whatever, you know what I mean? Everything's there. The second file, this is where I, start to get all the vomit bits, all the draft, all the craziness, and just start to put it into different sections and start creating the bits, you know what I mean? And this is the place where I work on the bit and just structuring it and have the draft, which is like the long version. And the third one is the repertoire, is the official bit. It goes there and then I start to work, and then I cut it down and it stays there, and this is the bit. Now, I will go in full details about all these 3 folders. I just wanted to tell you quickly, what the folders are, so you know, okay? Now, for me, the way I come up with material as well is, like I told you, I also, I talk to myself, I out there and experience, and I actually, here in my room, in my place, I have a space where, there's a bit of space, and I bought like a microphone from Amazon, those like karaoke microphones for $5 or whatever with a cable, and I just get the microphone, and sometimes either I choose a topic that maybe I need a few little bits to create an actual bit about a topic, or I just start random stuff. So I literally start walking, and I usually play some music or whatever, so so the neighbors don't think that I'm completely crazy, even though they're hearing about this podcast. They kind of know by now, but if I start talking to myself and laughing, they think that I'm legit psycho. And I just start walking, and I pretend sometimes that I even have an audience. So I'm just like, hey, how you doing, mate? Blah, blah, blah. What do you work? And he's like, I don't know, electrician or whatever. Because let's say I'm writing a bit about, I'm writing a bit, for instance, about professions that maybe Eastern Europeans are very good at, right? And what's the stereotype? Plumbers, electricians, builders, right? So I'm like, hey, what's your name, mate? He's like, hey, Michael, or whatever. Like, oh, what do you do? You're a builder. And then I start to improvise. You know what I mean? And I start walking, and I know it sounds weird, but it always something pops up. always either like a few sentences, either just like a few words or a joke or like a whole bit, or sometimes because I'm improvising and I'm trying to pretend that there's an audience, so I'll be under pressure. You know what I mean? I improvise and something always comes up. So what I usually do is with my phone, I usually record. I put the phone somewhere near and I just voice record the whole thing, because sometimes you're in the moment or you just say something on, and you know what I mean. And I used to, whenever something comes up, I used to go to the computer straight away and type it, but you kind of lose the momentum. So I just record the whole thing and then I listen to it. Okay. So this is pretty much how I get the bulk of all my stuff. Now, when I'm on stage, I do not talk about family. I do not talk about personal stuff, even personal stories. Meaning, like, maybe I will do stories what happened to me recently, or I watched this show. Like, I have a bit about cricket and I have a bit about Love Island. They're both 7 minutes long, right? And they're based on what I saw, when I watched the show for the first time. And I just record my experiences. But I wouldn't talk about, when I was 7 years old, how I celebrated Christmas. You know what I mean? Like on stage, I don't go into personal stuff. I don't talk about my family. I don't talk about relationships. None of that. You know what I mean? Mine is more observational comedy with few like surreal elements added to it, and a lot of like I'm very wild, flamboyant, and crazy on stage, and a lot of acting out, and a lot of voices, and all that, faces, and all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? But when I'm on the podcast, it's all about personal stuff. You see, I'm telling you how I write my comedy. I was telling you about my bad dates back in the day. I was telling you about, my high school days. I will be telling you about the farm that I worked on, all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Because I think this is like a better, version for me, because I can ramble on, or I can it can be a long story. And like in this episode, I don't feel like I need to make a punchline every 15, 16 seconds or whatever. But when I'm writing comedy, it's completely different, because when you're on stage and if you try to tell a story, especially if it's a personal story, you need to be funny. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want, this is not a TED talk, this is not therapy, this is not public speaking. It's comedy, so you better be funny. You know what I mean? When it's a podcast, even if it's a comedy podcast, sorry, this thing keeps telling me it's low power. It keeps scaring me every time. There's like this voice. You cannot hear it. Only I can hear the voice. Oh my God, the voice is in my head. But even if the podcast, it says comedy podcast, you don't expect to be a punchline every 15 minutes or 15 seconds. The whole idea is just to be entertaining and just to have fun, even if it doesn't make you laugh all the time. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to. But with comedy is different, So that's why writing comedy is so difficult. For me, I enjoy both. I enjoy writing, but I think I enjoy a little bit more performing because it's a bigger buzz, you know what I mean? But when you write, you have that feeling of like you're working on something and you're like away, you're by yourself and you're preparing this thing and you're working on it. You're like a craftsman, you know what I mean? Like when they were what they create, like weapons and stuff. I've seen how they create was it not knives, like a katana sword or whatever, back in the day. And they hit it over and over and over, and they go with all these coats, and the hot was melting the metals, and then they put the cold water, and then they hit it, or I don't know what the hell am I talking about, but you know what I'm saying. Like the way they prepare it, it's such craftsmanship, and it takes such a long time, and it's very repetitive. So writing comedy and preparing for a comedy show, for me, because I prepare for every show, it's exactly the same. It's very repetitive, and you work on it and you work on it, but it's such a great feeling. And I usually am very comfortable on stage when I need to present new material, because I kind of feel like, obviously, I don't know anything about bodybuilding. Obviously, look at me. But there was this British Mr.Olympia bodybuilder called Dorian Yates, and his nickname was the Shadow. And I thought that was the most badass nickname. That is the Shadow. That is the most badass nickname you can have. And he said the reason they called me that is because I was away. I was always away in my little shed, in my little gym or whatever in his house, and just working, month after month after month. Well, all the other bodybuilders, they were like on social, well, back in his days, I think it was in the 80s, there was no social media, but they were given interviews, they were in covers of magazines, they had like these conventions, they still have them, fitness conventions, they go to all the conventions, they were like public figures, you know what I mean? But Dorian Yates, he literally just worked in isolation, preparing himself. And whenever he stepped out, first of all, because nobody has seen him, so nobody knew what to expect. When he stepped out, not only he crushed the competition, but he just stepped out, presented, got his award, and he said, and I left, because most people, they stay and they go to all the TV shows now because they're famous, they go to, you know what I mean? And he said, I take my award and I leave, and then I reappear again in 5 months or 3 months or whatever, because they have a lot of competitions, you know. Mr. Olympia, I think it's once a year, but they have different federations and different competitions. And I've seen a few documentaries. Obviously, I don't know anything about fitness. I mean, I know about health. I'm relatively healthy, but I'm not like a big guy. But I kind of understand their mentality. And that's why if you're going to do something, especially in a creative field, study other fields that have nothing to do with your field. Bodybuilding has absolutely nothing to do with comedy. But if you study those guys and girls, because like being a bodybuilder, that is a different level of dedication. Not only mentally, because look, as a comedian, you have to be relatively mentally dedicated. I mean, we don't have to do push-ups, we don't have to lift weights, we don't have to run around the stage, for 4 hours or whatever. But if you're like a bodybuilder, that is a different type of dedication, like a lifestyle, And I love that idea of, if you prepare, and bodybuilding is all about preparation, because when you're on stage, their performance, 95% I think is determined depending on what you've done before you hit that stage. And not a lot of people see it that way with comedy. I see it exactly the same way with comedy. So because a lot of people think that you don't work out. Like bodybuilder, if you say to a bodybuilder, you don't work out, come on, you just go to a show, they'll be like, are you crazy? No, you have to prepare yourself, you have to work out. Same for me, it's exactly like that gig that you're doing, for me, that's just an exhibition. So I'm going to go and present what I've been working for the last 5 months, for the last 2 months, for the last 2 weeks or whatever. So I feel it like a presentation, like an exhibition thing. I don't see it like, oh, I wake up this morning and I have a gig in the evening, and I'm just going to see what happens. You know what I mean? I know some people improv. Sometimes I improvise a lot, but I always prepare. You know what I mean? I cannot be like, well, I don't know, like I just wrote something, in the next few days, and I wrote a new 5-minute bit. Let's see what happens. You know what I mean? If I haven't like tested that bit out, and if I haven't try to put as many punchlines and learn how to perform and how to do the physical stuff and all, I wouldn't go on stage and do it. Everybody's different. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're a comedian listening to this, you'll be like, no, you're completely wrong. That's why I'm telling you. This episode is called How I Write Stand-Up Comedy. This episode is not called How to Write Stand-Up Comedy. Because if I write How to Write Stand-Up Comedy, this podcast will get way more views. You know what I mean? But I'm telling you about my process. And I think there's a lot of links between comedy and other industries that has nothing to do with jokes. You know what I mean? So for me, preparation is very important. And I will talk about preparation, I think, in the next episode. So I'll tell you about how I prepare and how I perform and what I do, what my ritual before gigs are. Okay, and just to finish off, I have a few more minutes about writing, and I'll continue more with the writing as well. I think this will be a nice little introduction episode, and if we can do like a little series, like the last, the high school days, 3 or 4 episodes before the Christmas episode, I think it'll be great. So yeah, pretty much this is the 3 files that I have. Everything I get from the phone, it's put to the draft, and I start to work on them, and just sorting them out. You know what I mean? This is just the process where I just sort out, put everything in the middle file where I start to work on actual bits. You know what I mean? I take little snippets. Like, for instance, I had the Love Island bit. One of my newest bits is the Love Island bit. I was very fortunate to do it one time before, lockdown. So in that bit, I watched the actual show. So I got about 5 minutes out of it, just on the stuff that I watched and the stuff that I thought and everything I wrote down. But then I went back to all my notes, and I was like, and I actually found jokes from previous bits, or I have bits where I did them a few times, but they were not working, and I couldn't make them work good, because the whole bit is like a story which is 7 minutes, but there's only a few bits that work, but there are a few punchlines that are very strong, so I kind of take those punchlines and kind of chuck the rest. So I actually found some lines that were not exactly Love Island related, but they were about young shallow people, and I was like, great, because the show, if you haven't seen it, it's about young shallow people in the early 20s who are obsessed with, I don't know, fitness and fake lips and fake boobs or whatever, and they send them on an island. It's like a dating show or whatever. So I found those few lines, and I was like, great. So I put them in. I have a line which is completely different. Sometimes sometimes I'm going to have little bits, little maybe 1 or 2 or 3 sentences, mini bits that if you take them away and if you put them, they work on their own. Like for instance, I have a bit where I'm imitating. Because in America they have a lot of reality shows, TLC channel, and they're very preposterous. So I have a tiny bit, which is 30 seconds, about an American woman, and I even do like a accent from Texas or something like that. So that actually works by itself. I found the little bits and pieces as well, so I put everything together. It's like Lego pieces. This is how I see it when I construct a bit. You get all these little bricks and all these little very different sizes and weights and shapes and colors or whatever, and you just stack them together, and then you go on stage, you try the bit, and you see what works and what doesn't. And also in the other episode I will tell you how I because I record all my bits and then I review them, and I'll tell you how I revise material, because you always have to revise your material. But that is the main thing, the whole concept of you getting prepared and getting on stage and just showcasing. You know what I mean? And after you showcase a bit, maybe 3 times, you kind of know. And if you've done the right moves, and if you're a funny person, and if you learn how to write funny in the first 6 months, you will have a fun time in stand-up comedy, okay? Because I've seen acts who've been going for a few years, but they have a difficult time because they don't know how to write comedy. And it's not their fault. Everybody has different talents. Everybody has different abilities. You know what I mean? I cannot dunk a basketball. And I cannot, if I go to a wrestling ring, or like traditional wrestling, they're gonna kick my ass, but I kind of know how to write comedy. That's one of the things. I'm kind of funny, you know what I mean? Even though this podcast wasn't that funny, but I cannot always be funny. This is educational. If you learn how to do that, you have a fun time in comedy. If not, it's gonna be an uphill battle, you know what I mean? I think that's about it. I think that's a good little introduction. What do you think? I think that's a good little introduction. So yeah, next episode I will tell you about more how I actually structure my bits and how I write all the punchlines and all that type of stuff. And then I'll tell you how I prepare myself and how I do the actual comedy. What is going through my mind on stage? How I evolved, from the first gig that I've done to the last gig I've done. And pretty much, what I do after gigs and how I calm down and all that type of stuff, okay? So let's do 3 or 4 episodes before the Christmas, and then we can start off the new year properly. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you enjoy yourself, and I will see you next week, and have a nice week, and bye!